Hello, everybody. Welcome to the GoodCast. My name is Daniel. I'll be your host of the GoodCast, and this is episode 1. I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited about going on this venture with you. And today we're going to talk about something. We're going to talk about starting something new. Because for a long time, I talked about starting a podcast. But see, that's all I did. I just talked about it. I never actually started it. And I'm talking about this went on for a good 2-3 years. And I was one of those people who I stayed in the dreaming state. I just continued to talk about it, but it remained a dream. I never took hold of the dream. I never took hold of the idea or the project. I just kept talking about it. But the irony kind of here is that talking about it was almost like step 1 in my head. And so if you're someone out there who you've actually been talking about something, hey, congratulations, you're at step 1. Because in the world we live in, it's actually quite difficult to talk about things. Sometimes when you put it out there, you're open yourself to critique, and you become vulnerable with even an idea. Even if you haven't started it yet, you become vulnerable with that idea. But I'm so lucky because the people around my life, one of the people around my life is my wife. And she continued to hear me talk about this podcast, and you know, I kind of dreamed about it and I imagined what it could be, and I'm so grateful because my wife heard that and she saw that she could help give me a giant nudge forward in that direction. She heard that hum that was within me and she wanted to spur it on. And unbeknownst to me, she purchased me an entire podcast kit for my birthday, and that's what I'm speaking into right now. I'm speaking into the gift of my wife who heard me dream. How awesome is that? If you have a dream, surround yourself with people who will hear that and spur it on. I'm so grateful for the present that she gave me, and honestly, I would say it's the best present that I've ever given given. Because it wasn't just a present to me, it was this giant push, this giant shove forward. It was my wife's telling me that she was with me in this adventure, whatever that looked like. And I hope that this podcast is something like that for you. I hope that this podcast is a voice that you hear that's saying that someone's with you. I hope you hear that. I hope that you hear that through listeners and through their stories. I hope that you feel that you're not alone in the journey that you're going in. You're not alone in this life that you're living, that there are people who are with you. So sometimes talking about it is that first step. So I had this kit. And then I was like, oh no, what do I do now? I've actually got to start this thing. I've got to begin interviewing people. I've got to start thinking about content, and I've got to start developing what this GoodCast will look like. I had to come up with a name. That was the next part, and that was the part where I had to start something. And starting something is oftentimes the hardest part of beginning something new. It involves that vulnerability. What are people going to think? What are they going to say? Will what I do even matter? And oftentimes these questions hold us back from even taking that risk. They hold us back from taking that risk to start something new. But you know what I found incredibly fascinating? Those questions, those fears, that they're not new. They'll often hold you back from starting something new, but those thoughts and those questions are very, very old. In fact, I come from a faith tradition that follows the Hebrew scriptures, and something that I found hugely encouraging is that the Hebrew people, they also struggled with new things. They too had fears and anxieties that held them back from being who God had created them to be. But they also had a God who was with them. A God who continually called them forward into new things. How awesome is that? It's kind of weird. It's kind of ironic, but the scripture seems to actually end just like they began. They end with the birth of something new. It seems to me like God of the Bible has intrinsically wired us for adventure, for risk, and for newness. God has wired us for risk, for adventure, and newness. How awesome is that? You and me, we are both wired for something new. There's something that you have that deep down within you, that there's this desire that you have, and you're wired for that. And I hope that you know that. I hope that as we go on this journey together, I hope that you realize and you see that you are wired for new things. See, when I was growing up, I always wanted to snowboard, but I was raised in a cross-country skiing family. I don't know if any of my listeners have ever cross-country skied, but it is a different kind of sport. And it's not really thrilling. It's not really action-packed. There's not a lot of risk involved in cross-country skiing. Pretty much it's walking on skis. So we do that every Friday. As a family, we would do that. And I knew it was fun. It was all I knew. I never knew about downhill skiing, and I didn't know about snowboarding. But once I found out about snowboarding, I knew I had to try it. No one in my family had done it before. It was something new, and I knew that I needed to try it. I remember the first time that I went out and I got up on the snowboard, and I was fumbling my way down the mountain, and I remember you're on your butt a lot of the time. But then there was this moment where I stood up and I was going down the mountain, and I just felt so much joy. I was doing nothing. I mean, if someone saw me in that moment, they would have been like, that guy's just learning. Like, there's not a big deal about what's going on here. He's not doing backflips. He's not doing 360s. He's not hitting huge jumps. He's just riding down a hill. But it didn't matter to me, because what happened within me was I realized that I had started something new. I had the courage to start something new. And you know, oftentimes what I felt in that moment was I felt pride. I felt pride for doing what I really wanted to do. I wanted to snowboard, and I felt in that moment, I felt alive. And it was funny because it wasn't just because I was snowboarding, I was doing something different. I was doing something new, and friends, we're wired for that. We're wired for new things. Now, oftentimes you hear the word pride and you think about, that's bad. We automatically think about the negative connotations with the word pride. But I want you to think about pride in a different way today. We automatically think of the negative connotations, but pride is defined as a deep feeling or feeling of deep pleasure or satisfaction derived from one's own achievements. A deep satisfaction. See, I'm not convinced that that is a terrible thing. Pride is often what we feel when we take that plunge, when we take that risk. It's that thing that we feel when we know that satisfaction because we gave it everything. But see, there's barriers to new things. There's definitely barriers to new things that you will encounter as you start something new. If there wasn't barriers and if there wasn't boundaries or obstacles, you know what? We wouldn't experience the newness. One of the biggest barriers to starting something new I've encountered is fear, and I've talked about that a little bit earlier. And there's a quote that Susan David, she said in her book on emotional agility. She said this, and it's something that stuck with me, and maybe this is something that can stick with you too. It was this, that courage is not the absence of fear, but courage is fear walking. See, when we start something new, we begin to walk. We begin to walk in our fears. I work at a community center on the Sunshine Coast, and at this center, we have some squash courts, and I've never tried squash before. I'd walk past the courts all the time, and it looked fun. And it kind of reminded me of tennis, and for some weird reason, I really wanted to try it. But for a long time, I didn't. And why? Because everyone I knew who played on those courts, they were really good at squash. And for some weird reason, I bought into this lie, and the lie went something like this, that even though I had never played squash before in my life, I bought into this lie that I should be good at it. I should naturally be good at it, even though I have never done it before. And you know what that led me to doing? That led me to not bother playing it, because I knew that I wasn't going to be good at it the first time. And because I wasn't going to be good at it, it actually made me choose not to want to play squash. I don't know if you're anything like me, but I think it's oftentimes that we apply that same thinking to other areas of our lives. Why might we not do new things? Because we won't be good at them immediately? Like it goes against all logic, but that doesn't matter, because oftentimes fear is more powerful than logic. Carrie Fisher, an actress, said this. She said, "Stay afraid, but do it anyways, because what's important is the action. You don't have to wait to be confident. Just do it, and eventually the confidence will follow." So I started squash, and I was terrible. But I loved it. I had so much fun on the courts playing with all these different people, and slowly but surely I began to improve. But what mattered is that I was doing it. I was no longer the guy walking past the squash courts, looking at everyone else playing squash and going, I wonder what that would look like. I wonder what that would feel like. No, now I was doing it. Are you feeling this? I hope this is making sense to you. I hope that this resonates with you. I hope this awakens something in you. I hope it awakens something to start something new, because it is worth it. The second thing, though, about starting something new is that oftentimes it's going to cost you something. Newness will cost you. Think about that project, that idea, that job, that dream. Maybe it's a conversation that you need to have with an employee. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have with a boss. That new thing, that thing that you know you need to do, it will cost you something. You see it in your head and it's good, but it's going to cost you something. It might cost you the comfortable. It might cost you security. It might even cost you a certain standard of living. But the irony is this, that when you do it, you'll be truly alive. And I promise you this, you'll feel alive. You'll know that feeling, the one that you realize what you're doing, that you're doing what you love. The one when you feel like you're stepping into the unknown. The one where you know that you're risking it all, but you're living in this way that you're created to live. And I felt like that when I started to actually engage and started to talk to people and begin to work on this podcast. I felt so alive. I felt like I was doing what I wanted to do. It's been something that I've wanted to do for so long, but so many of these different things had held it back. There were fear, there were barriers. I knew it would cost me something. Giving up one of our securities, giving up security is one of the biggest barriers to starting something new. But the funny thing, like I was thinking about with security and being secure, while you're not doing something you desperately want to do, how are you secure then? You're secure, but you're secure in a world where you don't really feel alive. Like, that's kind of weird that we trade security for living dangerously. We trade security for living a life that's risky. That involves adventure. And that adventure oftentimes is inspiring to others and encourages them to live their lives. So what's the point of all that security if you don't even feel anything in life but secure? Some of the most exhilarating moments you've had in life are moments that you've often probably thrown that weight of security off. When you've fallen in love and you rode your bike for the first time. When I went snowboarding for the first time. Those things, when I played squash, we let go of that feeling of needing to be secure in ourselves, our achievements, maybe our jobs. And we fell for something. There's risk involved in starting something new. That thing that you keep dreaming about, the thing that keeps you up at night, the thing that you may even keep talking about with your friends, that new thing, just start it. Start it and see where the adventure takes you. Can I challenge you on something? I want to invite you to come on this journey with me. Come on this journey and start something new too. I'd love to hear about the challenges you face, the questions that you have. I'd love to hear about the adventure and the beauty that you discover, because I know you can do it. Let's do this together. Maybe this is that shove that you needed. We all need people in our lives to give us that nudge, and maybe this is that voice that you hear that tells you to do it. But my biggest hope is this, that you believe it. Throughout the next few weeks, we're going to be meeting people and talking to people who have started new things, who have heard that hum, that dream, that fire that is within them, and they've jumped. They've taken that risk. And some people you'll hear, people who, things are going well now. Others you'll hear where they've encountered suffering, they've encountered pain. They're going to talk about the costs. Some people came to the point of maybe even just throwing it all away. But this is the thing. I think we need to hear real stories of people who are encountering the difficulties of starting something new, because it's not just going to be all easy, smooth sailing, and pina coladas. It's not. This is life. But oftentimes, that thing that you want to do, it's worth it. I believe that thing that we want to do, that thing that desire that we have, that thing we want to start, I believe that it's there to bring hope and healing to this world. And I hope that you hear that thing that you want to do. Is it something that will bring others hope? Is it something that will bring others healing? Is it something that will create beauty and create wonder for others to behold and others to experience? And if it is, start it. Do that new thing. Well, I'll be speaking to you guys in a few weeks. We'll have our first guest. I'm really excited about this. We've got a pretty cool lineup of different people that you're gonna meet, you're gonna hear about, you're gonna hear their stories, you're gonna hear their passions, their dreams, what drives them, their fears, their anxieties, all that kind of stuff, because this is what the GoodCast is about. The GoodCast is all about all of life. Throughout this journey that we go on, you're going to meet people who share their stories. You're going to meet people who share inspiring things that they've discovered that will encourage you. You're going to meet people who've written books about different viewpoints and allow us to see life from their perspective. And all of this is because our lives matter. Learning and growing and encouraging one another matters. So I'm looking forward to where we go together. And I want to leave you knowing that God is with you. That God, His mercy and His grace are new every single day. And that your Creator is madly in love with you. So have fun starting something new.